The Caitlin Clark injury situation is officially a mess because not only is there not more clarity, there's more confusion about what her timeline could be. And that's coming on the heels of it seeming to be pretty clear when Clark would return to the court, or about when she would return to the court. It was said on the ESPN broadcast on August 12th that Stephanie White hoped Clark would be back in practice this week. Open portion of practice, Clark is not seen. And Stephanie White afterwards said it's status quo until Clark is back.
The WNBA just witnessed what might be the most brazen lie in league history and happened on live television for millions to see. 2 minutes ago, damning evidence surfaced that proves Stephanie White and the Indiana Fever have been systematically deceiving fans about Caitlin Clark's injury status. What started as confusion has exploded into a full-blown credibility crisis that could bring down not just a coach, but potentially trigger federal investigations into consumer fraud. And the receipts? They're absolutely devastating. Picture this. August 12th, ESPN cameras rolling. Stephanie White sitting confidently in front of the media with that practice smile coach's perfect over years of press conferences. She looked
spooky real fast. Very, very fast. I told y'all, people have had enough. All of y'all in the Indiana Fever organization who have been lying about this girl injury, not being transparent, and all these things that the fans are feeling, the fans are speaking back. They do not appreciate it. They feel scammed. They feel lied to, and they feel
directly into the camera and tells the basketball world that Caitlin Clark, the face of women's basketball, would hopefully return to practice this week. The hope in her voice felt genuine. The timeline seemed reasonable, and fans across the country started planning their return to arenas. But here's what makes this moment historically damaging. Stephanie White knew she was lying. The evidence is now undeniable. When that open portion of practice rolled around, where was Caitlin Clark? Nowhere to be seen. Not stretching on the sidelines, not doing light drills, not even observing.
Wow. So we are here now. And what's crazy about all of this is that, guys, this is I'm not going to come on here and say that they're going to lose, because if there was an investigation going into this team, they're not going to lose this investigation. Oh, they're going to win. Whoever is representing Caitlin is
on the bench. Complete absence. And when reporters pressed White about the discrepancy, her response was chilling in its simplicity. It's status quo until Clark is back at practice. That phrase wasn't an update. It was damage control for a lie that was already unraveling in real time. But this deception runs so much deeper than one bad press conference. Fans, armed with smartphones and social media receipts, have systematically dismantled every piece of the Fever's official narrative. What the organization pitched as a clean, simple workout mishap on August 7th now looks like the most coordinated cover-up attempt in WNBA history. And the evidence they tried to bury? It's all over the internet.
Right? I know there's never been a direct timeline, but all the signs seem to point in the direction of Clark returning soon. Even Natasha Howard saying, "See you soon, Cece." Now it's like, wait and see. And there's further information coming out that Clark suffered a bit of an ankle injury in the midst of her recovery process. Did that hinder her return? One reporter saying yes, another reporter is saying no. Bottom line is, we need to know a little bit more. We don't need Caitlin Clark's in-depth medical report, but it's fair for fans to wonder if the Fever and the league's biggest star is going to return to the floor this season, or what the chances are. And she's been out of action for 5 weeks, so it's not as if some patience.
Here's where this story gets absolutely wild. According to the Fever's pristine timeline, Caitlin Clark suffered this mysterious injury during a workout on August 7th. Nice, tidy, and completely PR-friendly. But fans did what fans do best in 2025. They started digging. And what they found should terrify every executive in that organization. Footage from August 7th shows Caitlin Clark strolling through Phoenix, looking smooth, unbothered, and absolutely not injured. She's walking normally, no limp, no visible discomfort, looking like the superstar athlete she is. So either Caitlin Clark has
on their team $1 billion. and they're a bunch of clowns, a bunch of bozos. You guys look completely incompetent and unprofessional. The way this has been handled, oh, it's a joke. It's a joke. Look, and look, they can't say anything about conspiracy theories. You're complicit in creating them because
superhuman healing abilities, or someone is lying through their teeth. The timeline destruction doesn't stop there. Let's rewind to the original injury that everyone seems to be conveniently forgetting. Mid-July, Caitlin Clark took a reckless knee from JCS Sheldon that injured her groin. Standard stuff. These things happen in competitive basketball. The medical team described it as day-to-day, talked about ramping up practices, and fans were told to expect a late August return. Everything was tracking perfectly until suddenly, magically, right as that return date approached, another injury mysteriously materiates out of thin air. The pattern here isn't just
stepped on by a coach right there on the left.
Stepped on by the coach, and I think she's going to be all right based upon the grin on her face. But
the left foot, the one that's got the issue, she got stepped on. And today, I'm not even going to say Indiana Fever fans, Caitlin Clark fans are crashing out at a different level. And I don't blame them.
Suspicious. It's insulting to anyone with basic pattern recognition skills. Natasha Howard was posting "See you soon" CC messages that had fans counting down the days. The entire organization was building momentum around Clark's imminent return. Then, like a switch being flipped, the messaging changed overnight from "see you soon" to "wait and see." That kind of 180-degree communication shift doesn't happen by accident. And here's where the Fever's amateur hour operation gets exposed. Instead of quietly admitting they miscalculated the timeline, which any reasonable fan would understand, White and her PR crew made the catastrophic decision to double down with outright lies. They invented this workout injury story and rolled it out like they were announcing a new flavor of sports drink. But here's what they didn't count on. Modern basketball fans aren't passive consumers anymore. They're investigators, and they have receipts that live forever. The media complicity in this cover-up is almost as disturbing as the lies themselves. Fever reporters, the people who should be holding the organization accountable, went on air.
Disappointing. It's deceptive. Fans invested their hard-earned money in tickets, streaming packages, and merchandise under the belief that they were being given honest information. Instead, it appears coordinated efforts were made between the league and team communications to present a facade of hopeful updates, masking the true status.
Laughing as they retold Caitlin's unlucky injury story. Not nervous laughter, but actual chuckles, as if the league's most important player being mysteriously sidelined was some kind of comedy sketch. Think about the complete lack of professionalism required to treat the face of women's basketball getting injured as a punchline while ratings tank without her presence. Fans watching this unfold weren't just confused, they were furious. Here's an organization with $1 billion asset, the most marketable player in WNBA history, and they're handling her injury status like a bunch of amateur clowns. The incompetence is staggering, but the deliberate deception, that's what's pushing this into dangerous legal territory. Because here's what the Fever either didn't understand or chose to ignore. They're not just lying to basketball fans anymore. They're potentially committing consumer fraud on a massive scale. When you sell tickets, promote broadcasts, and market merchandise around a superstar while knowingly misleading people about her availability, you cross from bad PR into legal liability territory. That's exactly the kind of deceptive practice that gets federal agencies involved.
However, that excitement turned to disappointment as misleading injuries kept fueling false hopes that she had played the WNBA. And hold up, damn, is they finna get a for line? Is they finna get a for line to the fans? Oh my God, hold up, the WNBA and Indiana Fever Indiana Fever have repeatedly engaged in what seems to be a strategic ploy to drive ticket sale and merchandise sales by suggesting that Caitlin Clark's return was on the horizon. Holy ish right now, bro. Oh my God, it's about to get red.
Now here's where the scandal gets even more twisted. Fans started connecting dots that the Fever desperately wanted to keep buried. Remember that footage of assistant coach Brian January literally stepping on Caitlin Clark's foot during a game? That moment didn't just vanish into the memory, like the organization hoped. Fans have been dissecting that incident frame by frame, and the timing is incredibly suspicious. So which story is true? Did Caitlin suffer a freak accident in some private gym? Or was she actually injured by the very coaching staff that's supposed to protect her? If it's the latter, and growing evidence suggests it might be, then this isn't bad luck or coincidence. This is negligence.
I think it's a really bad injury. I think when they rushed her back that one time, I think she hurt it even more and it pushed the timeline back.
Trying to come back and come back quickly. She needs to make sure that she's 100%. The competitor wants to play. We're prioritizing her long-term health and wellness is the most important thing.
As bad as it might sound, I think it might be like a season-ending level type of injury, and they're hoping to get in the playoffs and they can somehow get
that the organization then tried to cover up with a fabricated workout injury story. And negligence tied to misleading public statements is exactly the kind of mess that invites investigations, not just by the league, but by sponsors and regulatory watchdogs who don't tolerate consumer deception. Meanwhile, Caitlin Clark herself has become a prisoner in this PR spin cycle. Every time she speaks about her recovery, it's the same robotic lines that sound like they were scripted by a Fever intern trying to stop ticket refund requests. Working hard, feeling good, just unlucky. That's not Caitlin Clark's authentic voice. That's a carefully crafted script designed to minimize legal exposure while maximizing ticket sales. The cruel irony here is that Clark isn't some rookie who can be shuffled around with lies anymore. She's in year 2, already proven herself as the most valuable player to the league's survival.
Groin injury with Caitlin Clark is how it's been covered. The day after she had the groin injury, she was listed as day-to-day. And then a couple weeks after that, then she was listed to being out indefinitely. Now, ESPN had August 12th as the circled return date for Caitlin Clark to get back onto the court. And just yesterday, she was listed as a game time decision for today's game against the Dallas Wings. And then after practice yesterday, Coach Stephanie White basically came out and said, like, no, Caitlin Clark hasn't even been practicing. So they changed it from a game time decision to her.
She's earned every ounce of that spotlight by selling out arenas coast to coast. Yet the Fever are treating her like a dispensable pawn they can manipulate with whatever story serves their immediate financial interests. Here's what makes this scandal even more infuriating. If this exact scenario happened in the NBA, if a coaching staff injured LeBron James or Steph Curry and then lied about it, there would be investigations, immediate firings, and nonstop ESPN coverage demanding accountability. But in the WNBA, just silence and reporters smirking along like unpaid interns protecting the organization that feeds them access. The most disturbing theory gaining traction among fans is that this might not be incompetence at all. It might be intentional sabotage. Think about Caitlin Clark's trajectory. She came into this league like a tidal wave, shattering records and pulling in fans who had never watched women's basketball. Almost immediately, the narrative shifted. She's too skinny. She needs to bulk up. She's not physically ready for professional basketball. So what happens next? She's pushed into rapid muscle gain programs. Her body breaks down under the stress, and suddenly her second year is completely clouded by mysterious injuries. That progression isn't coincidence. It's systematic mismanagement. And when you start connecting those dots, all arrows point directly back to Stephanie White and her coaching staff.
All over the place, and I get it to a certain extent. The fans, the media does not need to know every little thing that's going on with Caitlin Clark's injuries, especially a star player like that. We will never know all the information, nor should we know all the information, and that's actually good for Caitlin. It protects her for when she does come back on the court. She can't be targeted. Teams can't use a certain injury or ailment against her if people don't really know what is going on. But the reporting of her timeline in general, there has been no rhyme or reason to what.
The same people now lying about injury timelines are the ones who may have caused the injuries in the first place. Fans are already demanding that Clark leave the Fever's medical staff behind and return to the Iowa doctors she actually trusts. And honestly, who can blame them? If the front office is lying about something as basic as when she got hurt, What else are they covering up? Are they downplaying the severity to protect their investment? Are they planning to rush her back early just to cash in on desperate ticket sales? These aren't wild conspiracy theories anymore. They're logical questions when an organization refuses to provide straight answers. The economic implications of this deception are staggering. Caitlin Clark isn't just another player. She IS the WNBA right now. She's the engine powering everything from ticket sales to television ratings to corporate sponsorships. Her presence alone sells out arenas from coast to coast. Her highlights drive national broadcast numbers, and her name keeps major corporations writing seven-figure checks. Remove Caitlin from the equation, and the ripple effects
to figure it out. The people have had enough. I'm going to let you know exactly what I'm talking about. This thing is picking up steam, and it's a bad look. It's a bad look. It's a bad look, all because you guys refuse to be transparent about Caitlin Clark injuries and injuries around the league.
But this isn't just
are
about
immediate and devastating. That's what makes the Fever's little cover-up so dangerous. It's not just bad optics. It edges toward criminal consumer fraud. If fans are buying tickets under the impression that Clark might play when the organization already knows she won't, that's textbook false advertising. And false advertising involving a billion-dollar entertainment industry is exactly the kind of case that sparks federal investigations. The timeline chaos surrounding Clark's injury status has been absolutely insane. Media doesn't need every intimate detail about a superstar's medical condition, and some level of privacy actually protects her from being targeted when she does return. But the complete randomness of injury reporting has had no rhyme or reason whatsoever. One day she's day-to-day. The next week she's out indefinitely. Then suddenly she's a game-time decision that gets changed to inactive hours before tip-off. Here's what makes the timing look so incredibly suspicious. Just as Caitlin Clark was heating up, dragging the Fever out of complete irrelevance and igniting league-wide buzz that was attracting mainstream attention, she suddenly gets sidelined under this vague, completely unbelievable timeline. The Fever's momentum immediately stalls. The team spirals into mediocrity, and all that carefully built hype vanishes overnight. Whether that was intentional sabotage or just catastrophic incompetence, the effect is the same, and it reeks of organizational dysfunction at the highest levels. This isn't just one isolated lie, either. It's part of a much larger pattern of systematic disrespect toward Caitlin Clark since she entered this league. Officials routinely swallow their whistles while she gets hacked by opponents. Commentators nitpick her performance in ways they would never dream of doing to other superstars. Jealous players target her with cheap shots that go unpunished. And now her own coaching staff is potentially lying about her medical condition. To fans watching this unfold, it looks absolutely coordinated, as if the entire league ecosystem is terrified of her star power and wants to dim her spotlight. But here's the beautiful irony in all of this. Every cheap shot, every swallowed whistle, every organizational lie only makes Caitlin Clark's fan base louder, more loyal, and more determined to protect their investment in her success. They're not just basketball fans anymore. They're digital investigators with unlimited time and unlimited motivation to expose every contradiction. The most heartbreaking aspect of this entire scandal is watching Caitlin Clark get trapped in her own story. She's far too intelligent not to recognize that the dates don't add up, that her own talking points sound artificially scripted, that something fundamental is wrong with how her situation is being managed. But she's forced to smile and nod along because calling out her own coaching staff mid-season would get her branded as difficult or uncoachable. She's being systematically silenced in the narrative about her own career, and that level of organizational control is deeply disturbing. People have been desperately trying to stay emotionally invested in this team because the GOAT was supposed to be coming back. Fans have airline tickets, hotel reservations, expensive game tickets, purchased months in advance, all based on the reasonable expectation that they were getting honest information from the organization. Instead, they're discovering they've been systematically lied to by people who view them as nothing more than walking ATM machines. So where does this go from here? There are really only two possible paths. Either the Fever immediately come clean, admit they've completely botched the situation, and finally start treating Caitlin Clark like the franchise cornerstone she obviously is. Or, more likely given their track record, they keep lying, fans keep stacking receipts, and eventually this entire house of cards detonates in spectacular fashion. When that explosion happens, and based on the evidence, it's a matter of when, not if, Stephanie White won't just regret lying to the fans. She'll regret underestimating the collective power of Clark's fan base, the investigative reach of modern media, and the very real possibility of federal investigations that could shake the WNBA to its core. Because if this pattern of deception continues, the Fever aren't just staring down angry social media posts. They're potentially facing class action lawsuits for deceptive consumer practices, federal investigations into false advertising, and sponsors pulling millions of dollars until the organization proves it can operate with basic honesty and competence. The bottom line is simple. Caitlin Clark is the face of women's basketball, the brightest star the WNBA has ever produced, and she deserves honesty, protection, and respect from the organization that profits from her talent. The systematic lies surrounding her injury aren't just sloppy. They're dangerous to her career, the Fever's reputation, and the league's future credibility. Fans should demand immediate answers. Sponsors should demand organizational accountability. And the media should push harder for truth because Caitlin Clark deserves so much better than this amateur hour deception. And her supporters won't stop fighting until she gets the honesty and respect she's earned through her incredible talent and dedication to the game.